Hey, how's it going? I'm Zach. You're watching ZakDTV, the place for interesting news from around the net. In today's episode, we're going to talk about rocket science to brain surgery. And we're going to stop in the middle for a little bit about net neutrality and some stuff that happened today that really needs to be put out there. Alright, let's get right into this. For my first story, I'd like to talk about a new development in Plasmajets. This is going to help replace our traditionally fueled jet airplanes. Plasmajets have just jumped a huge hurdle that has kept them in the laboratory for the last 10 years. So far, they have worked, but they haven't worked well enough to be used for our daily activities. Well, they just figured out how to make it possible. For those of you who don't know, Plasmajet engine uses electricity to make a electromagnetic field, which then they pump gas into, and under the extreme pressures of that field, it turns into plasma. This has been successful so far up in outer space or way up in the atmosphere, where there's a lot less pressure and these ships will carry their own fuel source. Now, researchers at the Technical University of Berlin have just figured out how to fire these at sea level under 1 atmosphere of pressure. This will allow us to fire these engines on the ground, use them to take off, and actually fly into space using this type of propulsion. That's been a big problem here with the private sector space flight. I don't know if you've noticed stuff like the Virgin Galactic. They have to take it up on a traditional jet plane and then drop it where it can then fire and go into the upper atmosphere. This would allow planes to take that whole trip from ground to outer space. They did this by pulse firing it and some other technical stuff I really can't get into because I am not a rocket scientist. But basically, they pulse fire it to get it going, and then once it's fired, it's able to run, is the general idea behind this. Now, like I said, this is a little ways off. The problem they're going to run into right now is the size. They are only testing with a test model. It would take about 10,000 of these to fly a commercial jet, which just isn't feasible. But as they work on this, they'll probably be able to scale it up to where it would be more realistic to use these on a commercial jet. The other problem they're running into is the lack of lightweight batteries. These do consume a lot of electricity. So for right now, they're kind of held back a little bit by all that extra weight that you need in batteries. They are looking into solar power or possibly small power plants. But you know, one hurdle at a time. This was a big one. They got it to work. Oh, by the way, something really cool about these. The jet itself was going out at 20 kilometers per second. That's about 45,000 miles per hour. Now, of course, taking drag and everything else and that, I'm not saying you get a plane to 45,000 miles an hour, but there's a lot of potential for speed with these two. Next, I'd like to go into this never-ending battle for net neutrality. Ajit Pai, whatever, the FCC chairman has now won another battle towards repealing our net neutrality. This is the guy who, after John Oliver got all those people to send messages to the FCC saying that we don't want net neutrality, he's the one who came out and did that Jimmy Kimmel thing where he's busting on people's comments for poor spelling and stuff like that, while totally avoiding the fact that we want net neutrality. Well, he doesn't care what the people want. He's pushing ahead with this. In a vote today, they voted 2-1 to proceed with repealing net neutrality. This is going to take months for them to do, and that gives us a little bit of time to fight back on this. If for some reason you don't know what net neutrality is, it is a set of laws that treats the internet like any utility. These laws were put in place because a little while back, Comcast was throttling Netflix because they were saying that it used too much bandwidth, and they wanted to charge Netflix more money to run their program over their wires, whereas other companies weren't doing this. So depending on who your provider was, you would not be able to watch Netflix because it was buffering all the time. Getting rid of net neutrality would also open them up to sell you plans, like the way they do right now with your different cable. You know, you get your package that has sci-fi in it. You get your package in it for HBO, Cinemax. You get your low tier package, your middle tier package. Could you imagine having to buy a package that said, if you want Google, it's only an extra $5 a month. If you want to use Netflix, it's an extra $20 a month. They can do that to you if we lose net neutrality. We cannot let this thing get pulled from us. So if you think this is going to help kill innovation, if you think this is going to be detrimental to your pocketbook as well as to the companies out there, then go ahead, get online, make a call to your senator, your congressman, write to the FCC. John Oliver's website, I think, was gofccyourself.com. Look it up, though, to make sure. Put a message through there as well. Make sure to let these people know that we want an open internet. All right, enough political stuff. Let's get to something easy, like, brain surgery. I mean, recently here, we have seen amazing strides in connecting brains to mechanical arms, to computers, so you can control a computer from your brain. We've even seen where they're basically taking wires and jumping over damaged spots in spinal columns to give a certain amount of use back to people who have lost use of their limbs. And so far, there have been two ways to accomplish this. They either implant electrodes directly into the brain, which is bad because it is an invasive surgery into the brain, and then on top of it, the brain sees it as a foreign object, puts scar tissue around it, and tries to reject it. So they don't last very long. The other option has been a cap with electrodes on it. Now that is not nearly as precise, so it really doesn't work too well. Now, a research team from the University of Melbourne, led by Thomas Loxley, have come up with a way to insert what they're calling a stentrode into the brain through the blood vessels. Basically, what they've done is they're using technology that's already been proven by taking a stent, which is something cardiologists have been using to keep arteries open in people with different vascular problems. Well, they have taken and made a stent with electrodes on it. Going in through an incision in the jugular, they will guide this up into the brain near the motor control center, and it will be able to pick up the electrical signals from right by where they are generated. This will not be as precise as, say, a direct implant, but because this is inside the blood vessel, the brain doesn't even know it's there. So there is no scarring, there is no rejection, nothing like that. It can just sit inside there, the blood flows through it, no problem, and it can just collect signals to its heart's content. This was tested in sheep back in 2016. 6-month test, worked beautifully, no problems. So they're going into human trials early 2018. They're going to start with 5 people. They're looking for quadriplegics, and they are going to use this to control an exoskeleton to allow them to walk again. Basically, they're going to set these stent up in their brain, wire it to a computer in their chest, which will then speak wirelessly to their equipment. So there's hope for people that have had major spinal injury. Part of this research is being backed by DARPA to help our wounded warriors. And with that, that's all I got for you. Thanks for stopping in. Remember, if you like what I do, your friends will too. So go ahead and share me on Facebook, Twitter. I do this 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Today's Thursday, so I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Be safe.